Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I am back to talk about the books that I have bought since I last did a book haul. This will basically be my February book haul. I'm filming this on the 5th of March, so right at the beginning of March, and this is basically, me filming this now is basically me gently reminding myself, giving myself a nudge to not buy any more books this month, because March is my birthday month. My birthday is the 21st of March, and I just really do not think I should be buying any more books until then I can even treat myself to some birthday books. Also because I do very much have it in mind that I do want to whittle down my TBR over the course of this year. So probably at least the first couple of weeks of this month should be me focused on reading the books. So me showing you these books today is my own little intervention. This is your cut-off point, Charlotte. Don't buy any more books until the 21st of March, okay? Good. We'll see how that goes. The first two books I have to show you today not only follow a similar topic, but they have the exact same title. That is, two books that are about libraries called The Library Book. The first one by Susan Orlean, and then the second one is a collection of essays written by lots of different authors. Susan Hill, Caitlin Moran, Julian Barnes, Alan Bennett, Kate Moss, Stephen Fry, China Mieville, Lionel Shriver, Tom Holland, Lucy Mangan, Zadie Smith, Val McDermid, Anne Cleeves and James Brown. Lots of different essays on the importance of libraries and why we should fight to keep libraries free and accessible to the public. Whereas this version of the library book is a history of the Los Angeles Public Library, and particularly about a fire that took place in 1986. I've been reading both of these alongside the Library of Fragile History, and I'm planning on doing a video kind of talking about all three books, so look forward to that. Next up on a very different tact, we have Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is a romance, and I believe this is Talia Hibbert's first YA romance. I'll be very honest with you, I don't know very much about the plot of this, aside from the fact that it is Talia Hibbert, and I have read her Brown Sisters trilogy and really enjoyed that. So I thought if this is even just a little bit as cute as those books, then I'll really enjoy it. Bradley Graham is pretty much perfect. He's a star football player, manages his OCD well enough, and comes out top in all his classes, except the ones he shares with Celine Bangura. They used to be best friends until Brad decided he was too cool for conspiracy theory obsessed Celine and abandoned her for the popular kids table. At least that's how Celine sees it. These days there's nothing between them but insults and academic rivalry. So when Celine signs up for a two-part survival course in the woods, the last thing she expects is to find Brad right beside her. As the adventure brings them closer together, they start to remember all the good parts of their history. But has too much time passed? Or just enough to spark a whole new kind of relationship? So yeah, just sounds very cute. Then the next book that I have to show you today is historical fiction. It's actually a book that I mentioned in my new to me video, talking about different books that I found out about during like January, February that I'd never heard of before. And then when I saw this in the shops, I had to snatch it up. And it is The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignatius Sancho by Paterson Joseph. This, as I say, is historical fiction taking place in 18th century London, looking at the title character Charles Ignatius Sancho, who was a black man who escaped slavery, and basically all of his different adventures. I was even more excited to read this when I found out it's been longlisted for the Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction, which is a prize that I don't follow very intently, but I'm always like keeping an eye out, and I've heard nothing but good things about this, so very much excited to read this. And also, like, isn't that a gorgeous cover? And when you take off the dust jacket, the end papers look like this. The next few books that I'm going to be speaking about are actually historical fiction, and the next one that I have to show you is Elizabeth of York, The Last White Rose by Alison Weir. So you will have seen last year that I read Alison Weir's Six Tudor Queens series and really enjoyed the process of reading that. This is part of her new series, which is the Tudor Rose series. This is book one, talking about Elizabeth of York, who was daughter of Edward IV, wife of Henry VII and mother of Henry VIII. This is very much focused on her life and her perspective, and hopefully you're going to get a bit more of an insight to this historical figure who was in a lot of these key moments of history, but whom I don't hear a lot of people being really very engaged and interested in, but I just think must have lived a very fascinating life, even if she was more quiet. As a quiet woman myself, I think there's nothing wrong with being that way inclined. And then the next historical fiction book that I have to show you is, I believe, a YA or like middle grade book, and it is King of Shadows by Susan Cooper. This is probably the book that I know the least about, but I've heard nothing but good things from the people who have mentioned it. This, from what I can tell, is a time travel story in which the main character is an actor who has just got a job working in the Globe Theatre, who through a series of events ends up time travelling to 1599 and so of course finds himself face to face with William Shakespeare. I'm always really fascinated when I do see William Shakespeare portrayed in fiction. I'm always really interested in seeing like what people make of his personality. So far I've encountered that with, of course, Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, as well as How to Stop Time by Matt Haig, which was a portrayal that I really found enjoyable. So I'm very keen to see what Susan Cooper's take on Shakespeare will be. And to be honest, when I saw this book in a charity shop for £2, I could not leave it there. Then next up, another book that you'll have seen me mention in my New to Me books video is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. This one, as you can tell, is a romance book, which very much takes the trope of a celebrity going out with an ordinary person or a fan. In this, we've got the main character of Marcus, who has just finished off wrapping filming off a big fantasy TV series that he was a part of. This big fantasy series that was like 7 seasons long, based upon a big sprawling fantasy book series, and he's wrapped the series knowing that fans are not going to be very happy with some of the deviations that the showrunners have made. He is playing a fan favourite character who is quite complex, who has 2 different love interests, one of whom is conventionally attractive but not very good for him, who makes his worst impulses come out. His other love interest in the books is derided by other characters for being ugly and not fitting the societal conventions of the time, but she seems to bring out the best in him, and he really seems to have a lot of rapport and love for her. Basically, if you've seen Game of Thrones, it's Jaime Lannister. He's playing Jaime Lannister. And Marcus is known in the fandom for basically not having much of a brain, for being very beautiful but not particularly intelligent. Or at least that is what Marcus will have everybody believe. What people don't know is that Marcus is very intelligent, but he actually has dyslexia, and his parents' attitudes to him having dyslexia and not being very supportive of him, not trying to help him, meant that he grew up very insecure about his abilities, insecure about his parents and their love for him, and so he basically rebelled against them and decided that if his parents were going to treat him like an idiot, then he was going to act like one. And this is something that has ended up seeping into his public celebrity persona. In order to kind of protect himself, he plays himself as this like golden retriever himbo character, and he is starting to feel the strain of that. We then have our other lead, April, not a celebrity, she works as a geologist, and she absolutely loves the TV series that Marcus works on, and even writes fan fiction about it in her spare time. As she's moving to a new job where she can be a little bit more free and open about her hobbies and her interests, she decides that she's going to become more public about her fandom love. So then one night on Twitter, she ends up tweeting out a photo of herself dressed up in cosplay of one of these female characters from the show, and doesn't think any more of it. However, her tweet ends up going viral, particularly as a result of a lot of trolls on Twitter basically criticising her cosplay as a plus-size woman, deriding her for her looks, even going as far as to tag Marcus's profile and basically sneering at her and being like, ugh, as if somebody like Marcus would ever find you attractive, even though that wasn't really the point of her tweet in the first place. Marcus ends up seeing these tweets and decides that he cannot let it slide. He can't let this troll behaviour pass. And so he very publicly retweets April, asking her out on a date. April is a bit sceptical about this, but she does eventually say yes. They go out for dinner, and Marcus realises where he knows April from. When he finds out that she writes fanfiction, he asks for her username on the fanfiction server that she writes on, and he realises that April is actually his internet best friend, because Marcus also writes fanfiction but under a pseudonym, and he's never revealed this to anybody because he'd basically be breaking his contract to the showrunners if people were to find out about his fanfiction, particularly all of the kind of negative things that he has said about the way that the show has gone. So Marcus finds himself in a bit of a dilemma. Does he tell April about their previous connection? Can he trust that she will keep this a secret? The next book I have to show you is one that I actually received from the publisher. Way back in November, I actually contacted Head of Zeus asking if I could see a PDF of their catalogue ahead of me doing my anticipated releases video, because Head of Zeus is very quickly becoming one of my favourite publishers, and I couldn't find their catalogue online, and they basically got back to me and said, here's the catalogue, also here are some books based on your YouTube channel that we think that you'd really like. And there were a few books there that definitely caught my interest, so I said yes to them. And so fast forward a couple of months and I find this in the post. Woman's Law, 4,000 Years of Sirens, Serpents and Succubi by Sarah Clegg. I don't know, the beautiful cover game is kind of tight next to The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignatius Sancho, but isn't this just stunning? Creatures like Lilith, the seductive first wife of Adam, and mermaids who lured sailors to their deaths are familiar figures in the genre of monstrous temptresses who use their charms to entice men to their doom. But if we go back back 4,000 years, the roots of these demons lie in horrific creatures like Lamashtu, a lion-headed Mesopotamian demon who strangled infants and murdered pregnant women, and Gello, a virgin ghost of ancient Greece who killed expectant mothers and babies out of jealousy. Far from enticing men into danger and destruction, these monsters were part of women's ritual practices surrounding childbirth and pregnancy. So how did their mythology evolve into one focused on the seduction of men? Sarah Clegg takes us on an absorbing and witty journey from ancient Mesopotamia to the present day, encountering a multitude of serpentine succubi, a child-eating wolf monster of ancient Greece, the Queen of Sheba, and a host of vampires. Clegg shows how these demons were appropriated by male-centered societies before they were eventually recast as symbols of women's liberation, offering new insights into attitudes towards womanhood, sexuality, and women's rights. Just sounded very, very cool. Penultimate book that I have to show you today is Lady Macbethad by Isabelle Schuler, in this beautiful Waterstones exclusive edition, which is signed. I think this might end up being the most beautiful author signature that I've ever gotten. And this is basically historical fiction looking at the inspiration behind Lady Macbeth in Shakespeare's play, looking at Gruach, who was the wife of the real Macbeth, who was King of the Scots in the 11th century, which is actually a bit of history that I don't know a whole lot about. I'm imagining whatever happened wasn't quite as fantastical as Shakespeare depicts it, but you know, we'll have to see. Daughter of an ousted king, descendant of ancient druids, as a child it is prophesied that one day Gruach will be Queen of Alba. When she is betrothed to Duncan, heir-elect, this appears to confirm the prophecy. She leaves behind her home, her family, and her close friend Macbethad, and travels to the royal seat at Scone to embrace her new position. But nothing is as Gruach anticipates. Duncan's court is filled with sly words, unfamiliar faces, women desperate to usurp her position, and others whose motives are shrouded in mystery. As her coronation approaches, a deadly turn of events forces Gruach to flee Duncan and the capital, finding herself alone, vulnerable, and at the mercy of an old enemy. Her hope of becoming queen all but lost, Gruach does what she must to survive, vowing that one day she will fulfill her destiny and take up the future owed to her, whatever it takes. And then the final book that I have to show you today is a bit of ancient Greek myth retelling. We know I love a bit of that, and it is Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati. Once again, some of these hardbacks are absolutely gorgeous. Take off the dust jacket, you've got these beautiful end papers, and I even have a gorgeous little bookmark. I always say I'm not going to buy any more of these hardbacks, but they make them so beautifully. I recently read Electra by Jennifer Saint, which is also looking at the life of Clytemnestra, so I'd be very, very interested to see how this compares. Clytemnestra, of course, being the wife of Agamemnon, one of the leaders of the Greek army that went to Troy, mother of Iphigenia, who Agamemnon ended up sacrificing in order to appease the gods before they set sail to Troy. Taking her revenge years later when he came back from Troy, the mythology states how Clytemnestra ended up murdering Agamemnon. You are born to a king but marry a tyrant. You stand helplessly as he sacrifices your child to placate the gods. You watch him wage war on a foreign shore and comfort yourself with violent thoughts of your own. You play the part, fooling enemies who deny you justice. Slowly, you plot. You are Clytemnestra. But when the husband who owns you returns in triumph, what then? Acceptance or vengeance? Infamy follows both. So you bide your time and wait, until you might force the gods' hands and take revenge, until you rise. For you understand something that the others don't. If power isn't given to you, you have to take it for yourself. So I don't know if I might want to wait a little bit until Electra has kind of left my brain a bit, but I don't know. I'm just always so intrigued by these Greek myth retellings. So there we go. Those are all of the books that I have purchased since the beginning of February. As I say, the hope very much is that I am not going to buy any more books, at least not before my birthday, but you know, we will see how we go. I'm hoping that I'm going to be like way too wrapped up in Herstory-a-thon, ploughing through those books to even think about wanting to buy any more. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken about today. Alternatively, let me know about anything that you have bought recently and enjoyed. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.